Luffy's 3 billion berry bounty is wrong. After defeating Kaido, Luffy has become the strongest character in One Piece. He was declared as one of the 4 emperors of the sea, putting him on the same tier as Shanks, Blackbeard, and even Buggy D Clown. But is Luffy's bounty really just worth 3 billion? Even leaving aside the fact that his sun god Nika, with just his strength alone, Luffy's bounty should be over 5 billion. And we're about to prove it by putting Luffy up against a 1v1 battle with every emperor. Now, due to Buggy being too overwhelmingly OP, we are skipping him entirely as it would be too boring to listen to such a one-sided fight. With that said, let's start off with Luffy's most recent battle with an emperor whose bounty was 4.6 billion berries. We're talking about none other than the strongest creature in the world, Kaido. But wait, hold up. Didn't Luffy already beat him? Meaning Luffy is stronger than him, right? Well, no. It wasn't really a true 1v1. Throughout the entire night of the Fire Festival, Kaido fought the 9 Scabbards, 5 supernovas, his own child Yamato, who scaled at a Yonko commander level, and he was holding up an entire island with his clouds. You guys really think that this was a fair 1v1? In fact, Luffy barely beat him. If it wasn't for his OP protagonist power, Luffy would have been dead.
He's out of line, but he's right.
However, with that said, we are now comparing Luffy post Wano to Kaido. The power level of Luffy between the beginning of the fight and the end of his fight is completely incomparable. At the start, forget his fruit awakening, he couldn't even properly utilize Ryo and didn't even know about advanced Conqueror's Haki or the fact that you could even combine them. It wasn't until way later in the fight when Luffy had already taken significant damage and lost a considerable amount of stamina that he finally learned the proper application of these techniques. Luffy was even knocked down from the island and then was sabotaged by CP0 before he had his awakening. And though there was many factors that made this fight not on equal grounds in the first place for both parties, if we take the version of Luffy at the end of the fight and pair him up against Kaido again on equal footings, chances are that Luffy would actually still beat him. The main reason that Kaido is such a tough opponent is that there was only a few ways to actually damage him, as he is the epitome of toughness in the world of One Piece. There's a reason why they say in a 1v1 you should always bet on Kaido. But given the fact that Luffy would know Gear 5 and all the Haki techniques needed to beat an opponent like him from the get-go, things would be completely different. You also have to remember that the floating island that they were on was a factor in this battle, as Luffy needed to trust Momonosuke and Yamato to handle everything else as he fought Kaido. If Luffy didn't have to concern himself with the safety of his allies, he could have immediately started using his giant island-sized fist. But the deciding factor of this fight is of course Luffy's Devil Fruit Awakening, Sun God Nika, being extremely powerful as it allows him to fight in such an irregular way that he becomes very unpredictable and difficult to fight against in his own domain, being Toon World. But even without this hack's ability, Luffy's fruit itself exhibits a dual form in being a zoan and a paramecia at the same time, where the zoan side of the fruit gives him an extra stamina, strength, and tankiness. If Kaido can tank 100 punches, Luffy can tank 1000 punches, as he can also heal just right after with his drums of liberation. On top of this crazy awakening, Luffy was also able to stretch his Haki to levels beyond comprehension. In fact, it was his Haki that overwhelmed Kaido's final attack, Kaien Daiko. Luffy's drastically boosted Haki allowed him to warp Kaido's body in any way he wanted. This showed us that Kaido's Haki was slowly being overwhelmed, as he wasn't able to instantly negate Luffy's Devil Fruit powers. So, despite Kaido being far superior in strength and stamina, given everything Luffy learned throughout this fight in a 1v1, Luffy really could defeat Kaido. But before Luffy takes on the next Yonko, he's gonna need a quick rest, eat some meat, and play Snowbreak Containment Zone, a new 3D sci-fi RPG shooter that allows you to enjoy a fast-paced tactical PvE gameplay. You can create your own crew and fight alongside two of your friends. The world has been struck by a disaster called the Descent. Your job is to solve the mystery of what happened whilst protecting humanity from the Titans, with an arsenal of highly customizable weapons, including SMGs, shotguns, and snipers. After the beta in June, they'll listen to what the fans had to say and are dedicated to make the best experience possible. By playing the latest beta, you can enjoy new bases, receive new characters, and even battle an 8-legged mechanical waifu. Completing the 5th chapter will also give access to one of the 5 orange tier characters. You know, by the way, I'll pick Fenny. This game is cross-platform on both mobile and PC, available in multiple languages, and already has over 2 million users pre-registered. So download Snowbreak today by using a link below. And on top of all these amazing rewards, use our code below to claim a free SSR. You'll also be helping support our channel. The next opponent is also someone Luffy has already fought against, twice in fact, Big Mom, with a bounty of 4.38 billion berries. But in the actual series, the ones who defeated Big Mom are Law and Kid. They managed to do this by launching her off the island into a volcano, but in the process, they took a lot of damage. This fight was mainly a battle between devil fruit powers, because Kid and Law aren't even close to the mastery of Haki that Luffy has attained, meaning if Luffy fought against Big Mom in a 1v1, he would have easily been able to damage her, especially if you consider the fact that Luffy is able to damage Kaido, meaning that there should be no one in the world of One Piece on whom Luffy's punches wouldn't work on. Kaido is the toughest character in the series by far. Only a few handful could actually damage him with some scarce rare techniques. So of course, Luffy being able to damage Kaido means that Big Mom is getting rocked. Luffy wouldn't need a strategy like pushing Big Mom off an island to win, or to use some secret hacks to bypass her Haki. And even when it comes to devil fruits, though Big Mom has an OP one, being the Soul fruit, which allows her to manipulate souls and imbue objects with it, one of her main abilities is to steal the soul of her target only if they are afraid of her. Given the fact that Luffy is someone who has one of the strongest will in the series, there's simply no way that this ability would actually affect him, especially if it didn't affect Jinbei, Law, or Kid. The other aspect of Big Mom's devil fruit powers is the elemental side, which you can literally give life to some certain elements. For any other opponent, Big Mom is one of the most terrifying people you could be facing. However, for Luffy's awakening, it's easily countered anything Big Mom could possibly throw at him. In fact, his control over the environment can even play to his advantage by using the electricity from Hera and throwing it back at Big Mom. Most of the powers created by Big Mom's homies are instantly nullified by Luffy's Gear 5 AoE Haki effect, which turns everything around him, including these homies' attacks, into rubber. We saw how effective this power is when everything was graced by Luffy's Haki. Even people inside of the Skull Dome became cartoony. And if you think about it, apart from her insanely broken Haki, Big Mom's biggest advantage is her size. But Luffy completely trumps that with his Gear 5, where he can literally turn into a fully fledged giant, even bigger than Big Mom. So with all of this, we can safely say Luffy wins this battle. Let us now move on to the legend himself, Edward Newgate, or better known as Whitebeard, whose bounty was second to only Gold D. Roger at 5 billion berries. Whitebeard was hailed as the strongest man on earth, and to kill him, he had to fight multiple admirals, giants, face cannonballs, be shot multiple times with guns, and even have parts of his face burnt away. Despite all of these crazy injuries, he still didn't have a single wound on his proud back. That's the kind of man he was. Whitebeard did all of this despite being far past his prime and being sick on top of that. That's how much of a beast Whitebeard is. But against Luffy, he gets clapped. So let's go to the next one.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Alright, fine, let's break this down then. Whitebeard is said to possess the most powerful paramecia and most destructive fruit ever, being the Gura no Mi. With this power, Whitebeard can easily cause natural disasters like no other and act as a one-man army. The power to summon tsunamis in a world where most of the planet's surface area is nothing but ocean is too broken. Sengoku even said that the power Whitebeard wields is strong enough to destroy the world, and even if there was nothing to use the fruit's power on, it could be used on atmosphere and space. This power is so OP, it even puts Whitebeard's allies in danger. That was one of the reasons why Whitebeard could not use the fruit's full power back during the war at Marineford. So in a 1v1 where Whitebeard doesn't have to worry about anything around him, he would be unstoppable. On top of all of that, thanks to Odin's flashback, we learned that Whitebeard is someone who has mastered both Conqueror's Haki at its advanced form and could even imbue it into his weapons. So even as a grandpa, Whitebeard is no walk in the park. However, the thing is, when we bring Sun God Nika into the picture, Whitebeard gets completely countered. The main advantage Luffy has is his rubber properties and the fact that he can apply it to his surroundings in Gear 5. Using the properties of rubber and its beyond natural elasticity, Luffy could easily negate the recoil and damage that comes from the tremors of the Quake fruit. With a fruit so reliant on the environment, it's a very bad matchup against Nika, as all it would do against Luffy is jiggle his bouncy castle. Even if Luffy does get hit by a point-blank tremor, then he ain't cracking, as that would be a type of blunt force attack, which is ineffective against it. With Whitebeard's devil fruit out of the equation, and given the fact that he was old and sickly before he died, I declare this round won by Monkey D. Luffy, especially with his post-Wano Haki.
Now, for the most terrifying enemy Luffy will ever have to face, Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard, with a bounty of 3.96 billion. He's a terrifying pirate, not because of his strength or even his wits. It's simply due to his personality. He's a man who will plan the downfall of an emperor for decades and stay hidden in plain sight. He will do his utmost to not be noticed until the right moment. Blackbeard rarely shows his Haki abilities, but in the times that he does, it seems pretty impressive. Like the time he showcased his incredible armament Haki, which was able to block S-Hawk's attack. But more importantly, Blackbeard's fight against Law proved that his Haki was able to withstand attacks that even fried the likes of Big Mom. With that in mind though, Blackbeard is extremely selective with his battles and only picks fights with those who he believes has less Haki than him. Evidence for this comes from him avoiding Rayleigh, Akainu, Shanks post Marineford, and even him getting squashed by Whitebeard. But that's where the main kicker comes in, and it's the fact that there's no one else who invests as much in devil fruits as Blackbeard does, boasting the powers of both the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gura no Mi, making him the only person who has ever eaten two different devil fruits. Yusuf has already explained how strong the Gura no Mi is when Whitebeard used it, but as for the Yami Yami, Blackbeard calls it the strongest Logia, and its powers definitely do deserve such a title. The dark fruit allows Teach to create, control, and even transform his entire body into darkness like any other Logia would. However, unlike any other normal Logia, the darkness fruit lacks the ability to make its user intangible. In fact, when fighting against Ace, Blackbeard felt even more pain than normal, and this is due to the nature of darkness, and that is to absorb everything. Within his own body lies an infinite void. Blackbeard is able to use gravity-like powers to pull in and absorb things into darkness, where he can later decide to release it whenever he wants to. His power is to devour everything until it all returns to nothingness. With its absorption powers, it comes with the extra ability able to nullify anyone else's devil fruit powers as long as he's in physical contact with the user. Unlike the power of Haki though, which can bypass cast devil fruits and even deal damage to Logias, Blackbeard's ability makes it so that it's as if the devil fruit the user ate never even existed in the first place. It's a complete and utter negation of other devil fruits, which makes this thing so OP. With this, Blackbeard gains an automatic advantage against opponents, especially those who rely on devil fruit. However, as I stated, a person with the higher level of Haki will just body teach like we saw with Whitebeard. The fight with Luffy will entirely come down to his raw Haki, which we know is ridiculously OP as even Kaido acknowledges it during their fight. In fact, Kaido purposefully mentioned that devil fruits are nothing compared to the power of Haki, and he will not lose due to this universal fact. He did. Why? Well, because Luffy's Haki was simply greater. When it comes to Blackbeard, despite having some of the most overpowered devil fruits ever, he actually seems pretty weak. Let me explain. Every time Blackbeard has ever achieved anything great, like scarring Shanks' face, winning against the remains of the Whitebeard pirates in the Payback War, or most recently, winning against Law and his crew, all of these events happened due to his third devil fruit being the off-screen Nomi. This fruit allows the user to never have a full fight on the pages Oda draws. It's so OP that it has never lost a single fight. I'm legit, that's his third fruit. But seriously though, because of his feats being off-screen, it's hard to truly understand how strong Blackbeard is, as he seems both overwhelmingly mighty yet weak at the same time. Like, if he was that strong, then Teach shouldn't have to exert so much effort to beat Law while all of his homies were ganging up on him too. But given the fact that he was also heavily wounded against the Heart Pirates brings his fraud allegations to light. Law is not close to being as strong as Luffy, even before his Gear 5. Like, Luffy will body Law, let's be real here. Kaido versus Luffy at the end of the day was a 1v1, yet Law had to tag team with Kid against Big Mom. You can dispute the fact that Big Mom overpowers Kaido, but their own clash makes it seem they weren't that far apart. And though Blackbeard possesses dual fruits, which on the surface might compensate for any Haki difference, Luffy's fruit itself is of a dual nature, if not more. We have still not seen Blackbeard's devil fruit negation on a zoan. Like, imagine he touches Chopper. What's gonna happen? Is it gonna turn into a reindeer? Can't even speak? No, that's a mystery right there. And I think Oda is hiding that zone negation for a very important reason. Also, by the way, Blackbeard touching Luffy at Impel Down doesn't count, because at that time, Luffy only knew about the paramecia factor for the devil fruit, where the zone nature only fully activates during his awakening. This unknown factor might give Luffy the advantage because zones are not only said to actually change the biology of their host, but also give them an extra spirit altogether. Luffy's Nika spirit might not be affected against Blackbeard's power, and Luffy frees himself from Blackbeard's touch. His Gear 5 will give him the zone awakening effect of boosted recovery. Also, in a fair 1v1 fight, Blackbeard would not be able to use his greatest ability, and that is to manipulate external factors to make things happen in the way he wants them to. So knowing Luffy's Haki is beyond broken, just look at his island-sized fist against Kaido. Blackbeard on his own would definitely get smashed. But now, jumping to one of the most powerful pirates to have ever existed, with a Haki so strong that it rivals the Haki Man himself, Roger. I'm speaking of none other than red-haired Shanks, the man who is worth over 4 billion berries. He has many unexplained Haki Man powers, especially after the release of Volume 4 Billion and Film Red. Shanks by far is easily the strongest Haki user alive in the series. Shanks' baseline Conqueror's Haki is so powerful yet precise that it's able to aim for a specific target and inflict them with pain to the point that even an admiral in Green Bull was afraid to mess around in Wano any further, despite Shanks literally being miles off the coast of Wano. But this is a given when considering that he's the only Emperor of the Sea to have ever existed who has never eaten a devil fruit. The fact that he can stay at the top in a world filled with some ludicrous powers simply speaks volumes. However, Haki isn't the only thing Shanks has going for himself, as he was also known to rival the skills of the strongest swordsman in Dracule Mihawk. Despite losing his dominant arm to the Sea King while saving Luffy, Shanks is still extremely fierce with the sword. He's able to imbue his weapon with advanced Conqueror's Haki and is able to use it to resist some of the most destructive powers in the series, like when he blocked a full-on attack from Akainu, someone who even managed to damage Whitebeard. In Film Red, Shanks was able to scare Fujitora with his Conqueror's Haki alone and made the Marines retreat. His Conqueror's Zoro's haki is so powerful and destructive that it was causing major damage to his surroundings. This is a feat that only a few in the series have managed. And aside from the standard 3 forms of haki and their advanced tier, Shanks has managed to go beyond that. Being dubbed the killer of observation haki, Shanks has this title because he has an ability known as sign of presence, which allows him to disrupt his opponent's use of future sight by concealing his own presence, which he used to surprise everyone at Marineford with his entrance. Shanks' observation haki itself is so potent that he can even see many seconds ahead into the future, as shown against Kid, who he proceeded to one-shot. By the way, Kid had the same bounty as Luffy, and bro got one shot by Shanks. Come on, Luffy deserves a higher bounty. If like Law and Kid, who are supposed to be on the same level as him, are getting bodied by Blackbeard and Shanks, like, come on, bro, give this man a 5 billion bounty. Anyway, compared to the other Yonkos, Shanks by far has exhibited a superior level to his haki in all forms. As Kaido stated, it doesn't matter what devil fruit you have. In the seas, it's haki that rules supreme. Shanks completely outclasses not just Luffy, but literally everyone else in the series in terms of haki mastery. And due to Shanks' excellent swordsmanship skills and the fact that his Conqueror's haki is busted, him and his weapons would be able to resist the powers of Luffy's Gear 5 awakening, meaning he has a real shot at dealing devastating damage to Luffy. He is the haki man. What do you expect a haki man to do? Lose to Luffy, who is not a haki man? So yeah, with his swordsmanship, being able to slice like anything he desires makes Shanks the perfect counter to Luffy. Because remember, Luffy can withstand blunt force trauma, but against a sword, that's his biggest counter. However, Luffy has something that Shanks doesn't. His OP protagonist DNA. Not only is he the embodiment of Joy Boy, but he also possesses a fruit that has no limit. Luffy's fight against Rob Lucci reminded us that rubber and elasticity isn't the core foundation to his devil fruit. Rather, it's his imagination. This is how Luffy was able to pop goggles into existence out of thin air, create fire with his red rock attack, and cartoonify the world around him. Luffy's haki might be weaker than Shanks, but his devil fruit ability to stretch him unconditionally could even help stretch Luffy's own haki above his opponent. This was shown when Kaido exhibited his full might, where imagination gave rise to the Bajrang gun, which inflated Luffy's haki larger than the island of Onigashima. He is a character that gets stronger with his opponent, basically proving that Luffy's Gear 5 lets him get stronger with his opponents. With a devil fruit that adapts to the user's imagination, it's near impossible for Luffy to lose. Even Shanks' observation killer is something Luffy can overcome, as we saw when Rayleigh showcased this power whilst training with him. When Rayleigh asked Luffy how he was able to detect his presence even with this ability on, Luffy simply responded, "I couldn't sense your presence, but I kind of felt that you smiled." The power to see emotions is something above haki altogether. This relates back to the voice of all things. Luffy inherently can understand things beyond his grasp, and that is what allows him to overcome the challenges he faces. So that's how Luffy will beat the red-haired Shanks and every single Yonko you throw at this man. So make his bounty 5 billion. But if you want to know how strong Zoro is now, watch our video where we scale Zoro's new power. Bro, this guy is crazy. This guy can cut infinity.